Welcome to the 23rd of September, 2021. Well, we've got a great weekend coming on up. The next couple of days, not bad either, but we do have a little bit of a weak cool front passing through. This is going to produce some mid and high level clouds, a bit of a breeze today. It's going to make Friday a little bit cooler, but there's really nothing more than maybe a couple of sprinkles with this front that'll happen mainly in the western mountains, and that's really about it. A touch cooler behind the front on Friday, but skies will be clearing, and then it's going to be a beautiful weekend. As we go through the weekend and probably through Tuesday, we don't see anything. Yeah, there'll be some high clouds. Yes, it might be a little bit breezy, but I'm nitpicking. It's going to be, for the most part, just a delightful stretch of weather. Now, beyond Tuesday, it gets more unsettled by the end of next week. I think as early as Wednesday, maybe Tuesday night into Wednesday, we're going to start to see things get a bit more unsettled. We've got two systems, one coming into the Pacific Northwest and another one coming up out of the desert Southwest. So the weather gets a little more muddled, a little more complicated by the middle of next week. Until then, though, very nice. We also have a La Niña update for you. We've got some new data in, and we'll take a look at what we're expecting with La Niña for the fall and into early winter. Some photos keep rolling on in. This is from the Sierra Madres elk hunting camp. The Sierra Madres of southern Wyoming, a fabulous place to check out the colors. And you can see just beautiful conditions there on the western side of the Sierra Madres looking southwest towards Steamboat, Colorado. Now, speaking of the fall colors, I've made up a brief list of some of the areas that you may want to check out this weekend because, at least for the aspens up high, this weekend is usually the peak. Now, the colors last well into October, but this could be a really good weekend to see the peak colors. These areas listed are some of the best known ones, and I know a lot of you have other suggestions, and this is just scratching the surface. I know there are many other areas to go check out the fall colors, and if you have some suggestions, send a note to podcast@dayweather.com, and we'll add to this list of areas to go in the Intermountain West. I've just listed basically Wyoming and Colorado locations, but for you folks in other states, let me know as well. Also, I will completely understand if you don't want to share your secret aspen viewing place. I totally get it. Don't forget to send your color report photos into podcast@dayweather.com. Now, looking at the weather now, here is the little system. You see this little dip right here? Right here is an upper level low. It has very little moisture with it, but as it comes through today, it's going to move southeast. It's going to produce some high mid-level cloudiness, a bit of a breeze. It's going to make Friday a little bit cooler. There might be, in this area right here, a couple of sprinkles today, but that's all the system is really going to muster. And as it heads off to the southeast, we're going to go into a northwest flow that'll be cooler and dry Friday, but this high pressure ridge will try to build into the western United States by the weekend. Now, this is by Sunday. We have a broad ridge in the central areas of the United States. Cutting underneath is a little low down into Arizona. Now, it's actually going to rain down in parts of the desert Southwest this weekend with this low, but it's just going to kind of sit there. So in between right here, well, there's just really not going to be any weather of any consequence. So it's going to be a quiet stretch of weather through the weekend and early next week. But this guy's building, getting colder. There's another one up behind it that'll help start it to move. And what we're going to see by the middle of next week is this gets lifted north by this. Lows always kick out other ones. It's called Henry's rule. Lows make other lows move. So what will happen is, as this low comes down into the Pacific Northwest, we will see some rain move back into Washington and Oregon here by late this weekend and into early next week. Another good shot of moisture for those guys. That system comes in. This one lifts like this. And what will happen is we get a little bit of a complicated pattern of this system lifting into the region. And this is going to bring a cooler, not cold. This is not a cold pattern, but a cooler pattern by the middle of next week. And there is going to be some shower activity with it. In fact, the 10-day precipitation forecast looks like this. This is through Thursday morning. You can see the Pacific Northwest and Northern California getting a nice shot of precipitation again. Some of that gets into southwest Montana, maybe Yellowstone Park by the middle of next week. And look at this moisture down here forming and lifting northward. Now, there's a lot of question marks with the modeling because it gets complicated when the seasons change. The models have a hard time. And this gives you a good example. This is the 10-day forecast for 500 millibars or at 18,000 feet. This map I show you all the time. What it shows is kind of a convoluted pattern with a low in the Midwest a big hurricane off the east coast of Florida, just to the east of Florida there, and an area of high pressure in the western United States, and a big low up in the Gulf of Alaska. There's too much going on here. This is not going to happen. When you see the models kind of predicting something that just isn't physically possible, you have to take it with a big grain of salt. So for the long term, past, let's say, Wednesday of next week, a big question mark. So stay tuned. But we promise we'll have more weather to talk about once we get into the early parts of next week. In the meantime, though, a whole lot of nothing. This is the latest ice and snow map, and I'm going to show you this off and on through the course of the changing seasons. What's new about this is notice the snow cover now getting more extensive on the north slope of Alaska into the Yukon and parts of the southeastern areas, southern areas of Alaska's bigger mountain ranges and up into the Northwest Territories. You're going to start to see this area grow and expand further south. And if we were to take a look at what's going to be happening in the northern hemisphere in the next 10 days, snow is picking up. Now, I'm showing you a map I never show you because this is not our part of the world. But here's China, here's India, here's the Himalayas right here. And what we're seeing basically in the higher northern latitudes, basically Russia getting into Siberia, it's starting to snow more. And that snow's going to stay on the ground. It's not going to melt. Now, why is this important? If we were to take a northern hemisphere look over the next 10 days, you can see the snow cover now is really starting to get a little bit more impressive. Why this is important, especially in northern Asia and as we get up into Siberia up here, is that once this area gets snow cover, this area right here is a source region for the first big shots of very cold air that usually will come in October and November, where you get the real deal cold. So we watch the snow cover build up here. Once it starts to build up, it starts to create cold air masses, and then we wait for the right pattern for this cold air to come over the pole into Western Canada, into Alaska, then into North America. So we will keep an eye on this as the coming weeks. We'll see more and more snow there. Now, here's your updated La Niña information. This is the new projections just derived here over the last couple of days. Right now, we're in a very weak La Niña state. Right here, this green line is the average of all the computer models predicting what La Niña is going to do. Anything below that zero line is a cold Pacific, which we know is a drier than normal signal for the Western United States, and one big reason why it's been so dry in most of the Western United States for the last 18 months. What we're seeing here is what we've been expecting, which is basically a continuation and a strengthening. The La Niña is going to get stronger in the next 3 months, peaking out, then beginning to weaken just in time for spring. And boy, we really hope this happens. If we can get this March, April, May, June timeframe to get this La Niña done, get those sea surface temperatures back closer to average, that bodes well for the spring. But La Niña is going to impact us for a little bit longer. If you were to look at the statistical probabilities, you see very high, 60% or better through December, January, and February. But notice, while the El Nino chances are almost zero, they start to go up right here in the spring, and the possibility of a neutral or near normal situation with sea surface temperatures are going up. So these trends are encouraging that by spring, La Niña will be done. But we're not quite done with it yet. Here's the latest sea surface temperatures, and you can see all the blue and the green here along and near the equator. That continues those cooler than average sea surface temperatures, an indication La Niña is continuing. But if we were to compare to where we were a year ago, a year ago, La Niña was a lot stronger. This is exactly a year ago. So notice the darker green colors. The waters were colder, deeper, and more extensive. And that's one reason why we had such a dry, nasty fall in the Western United States. This time last year is when we had 3 very large wildfires, 2 in Colorado, 1 in Wyoming. The East Troublesome Fire, the Cameron Peak Fire, the Mullen Fire were all raging at this time a year ago. And it was partly due to that strong La Niña. But this year, the La Niña there, but weaker. Have yourself a great Thursday. We'll see you on Friday. Have a good day ahead.